I want to focus on what since '09 and 13, and that was right after, I guess, the days of LDPs and direct payments, which we'll get to the second thing I'm going to talk about here in a moment, the heavy involvement of government over the years that we've just weaned ourselves away from. Part of the solution, in my mind, is to look at the inputs that they use in their business have doubled, tripled, and sometimes quadrupled between '09 and 13 and the present. And I think market concentration is something that whenever you have too much of it, we see it in healthcare now, we see it in tech, we see it in many other places, inputs, prices, costs go up, stay up, don't come down. Would you comment on what you would do in your unique position to address the things that farmers need to buy and purchase increasingly from fewer and fewer and less local all the time in terms of the major inputs that go into their business?
Senator, I think one of the things that we could do and should do is for the Secretary of Agriculture to reach out to the Attorney General and see whether or not the Attorney General and Department of Justice would be interested in reinvigorating, recreating the task force that occurred a number of years ago, with the express understanding of taking a look, a very deep dive into the issues that you've raised, and perhaps expanding that task force beyond the Department of Justice to include other players that may have an impact, whether it's the Federal Trade Commission or whether it's the Small Business Administration or whoever might have an equity, if you will, in this issue of markets that are working, markets that are competitive, markets that are open. I think there are tools, obviously, within the USDA that we need to take a look at relative to examining the economic analysis and deep data of the impact of concentration on the costs, on the input costs, to create sort of a foundation, a basis for potential action and rulemaking if necessary. I think you and I talked about the patent laws, whether or not that they need to be looked at and examined to determine whether or not in a day of rapid and incredibly rapid change, they need to be looked at in terms of the amount of time that folks have in terms of patent protection. And I think, frankly, we need to research. This is a bit afield from the input question you asked, but I think we need to take a look at how we might be able to significantly increase public research so that the foundation research upon which new seeds and so forth can be developed isn't necessarily as expensive as our current system, where the private sector basically creates the new technology and then licenses it to seed companies. So I think there are a multitude of ways in which the USDA can be engaged in this conversation.
You know, in times like these where agriculture has been stressed so often, in my 2 years here, any industry that gets in trouble generally comes to the federal government to look for help. And I think most farmers, as I mentioned earlier, were glad to wean themselves from LDP payments, direct payments, and basically most of the involvement, other than in a year like going through COVID, would have been through crop insurance.